Welcome back to Community Group Curriculum this week. My name is Chris, and this is Pastor Ken Dick, our pastor of discipleship, leadership, training, care.
Great
What
to be
is
here.
your official title?
It's pastor of discipleship and leadership development.
And this guy is like the mad scientist in the office. I think that's what you've been deemed. I saw a
That's
picture
what they said.
recently of like your glass in your office and your whiteboard, and there's writing everywhere. It's like a beautiful mind going on in there, man. Yeah, but I guess there's a lot that's going on that you have to be able to figure out the track.
We're just trying to map out the discipleship map. So wherever you come into Village Church, what would be your next step to becoming a mature disciple? So we're trying to map that all out. So that's what it's all posted.
I love it. It brings so much character because things in our office are so white and blank,
Right.
and then you walk by Ken's office like, boom! It's like, that's it, we're here. All right, so Ken, obviously we're busy, you're busy, we have things that are going on, and on Sunday was kind of a moment where we had all this theological text and things that come out of this text, yet we couldn't cover it all, obviously, because you have 30 minutes to go over it. So Ken, today I want to really get into a couple things maybe that we didn't get to touch on Sunday.
Super.
But firstly, in our groups, I want to get our minds thinking about disciples of Christ. I want to get us thinking, like, if we could know them a little bit more, because I think a lot of us might be able to list them, but may not be able to actually know them. Let's take some time right now in our groups to play a little bit of a game, okay? And some of you be like, well, I don't even know who I'd take for what. So maybe I'll just take the three I can actually name, and that's what I take with me.
Sure.
But okay. Picture this, okay? It's like Survivor. You're going to a desert island, you're going to win these challenges, and you have to pick three of the disciples out of the 12 to take with you. Who do you take and why? And if you're looking...
It's like a Survivor reward, right? You get a reward, you get to go away to the other island just with three.
Yeah, that's right. So this is the reward. You get to go away with these three guys. Who would you take with you? Let's discuss that as a group, and I'm going to put a list up there as well from Mark chapter 3, verse 13, where there's actually lists out the disciples, so we can talk about that.
So who you take and why?
Right, yeah, absolutely. Who are you taking and why? Debate it a little bit, and we'll get back to that, and then we're going to get into some thick stuff after that. So this is just a little bit of a primer before we go into our next section.
Good. All right, we're back. We talked obviously about the Mount of Transfiguration, and I talked a lot about in the early part of the message about being an idealist, Peter, James, and John. Now, I realize not all of you are idealists, though, so here's a hint. If you're not an idealist, and if you want to make a difference in this world in a way that's consistent with your personality and your spiritual gifts, then connect yourself, sign up on a ministry team, get involved in a ministry with some idealists, and offer your gifts and your talents and your abilities there. Go on a short-term missions trip, or if you're really radical, marry an idealist or something like that.
Just so we can catch the people who maybe missed Sunday, what are you defining as an idealist?
It's that zeal, it's idealist that if good is better, then this is not good enough, that we want to make the biggest difference and we can do more.
Right.
And it's that kind of excitement. So just watch it online and you'll pick up on that. So, but whether you're an idealist or not, the one area that we can all identify with Peter, let's just single out Peter, and that's in the area of our failures. Peter, in my opinion, Peter and Judas failed Jesus more than any of the other disciples. Both of them betrayed Jesus, and yet Peter was named Disciple of the Year, whereas Judas went and took his own life. And I've often marveled and thought about what is the big difference? What is the big difference between Peter and Judas? And what I've come out to is this: in the face of inexcusable failure, Peter ran to Jesus, and Judas ran away. And intuitively, that's what we all do. We all run away from failures, intuitively run the wrong way. Right. We run away from failures, from conflict, from pain, rather than running to Jesus. So here's what we're suggesting they do for this discussion. Chris is going to give you're going to give them some questions, right? Yeah. But we'd like you to, if possible, if you can do it in your rooms, split into guys and gals, break up in groups. So if you can put someone in the kitchen and someone in the living room, that's great. Don't use the bedroom or bathroom because that's weird. But
unless you have a guest room or something.
Right.
Other rooms are great if you can.
But try and separate the guys and the gals. And talk about some of these deeper questions, and then come back together after you've done that, after you've prayed with each other. Chris, you've got some great questions here.
What we're going to talk about is this idea of failure. I mean, we're all going to run into that at some point in our lives. Maybe in our past we could think about and even share and discuss this idea of what's the worst failure maybe we've had in our lives. Maybe it's something we're still dealing with. Maybe it's something we've overcome. But a lot of times that's kind of a safe question because a lot of us won't really share that initial, like, what's our biggest failure. That's huge.
And it might have happened 15 years ago. That's why it's safe.
Absolutely.
But still, it's a good good way to start.
Yeah, so what I want to really get our groups into is what's a current failure that you're dealing with right now, or where are you failing in a current relationship? So these kind of aspects of failing in a current relationship, or what's a big failure in your life that you're feeling you're struggling in a failure right now.
Right.
And then also, in that failure, this is where we want to bring you to, because obviously there's a huge difference in how these two went. One ran to Jesus, one ran from him. Our desire is that you would run to Jesus in these failures, that would be the turn of your heart. But we really want to get to a practical place where you say, and you develop with this group and you work out with a smaller group of trusted people, what does it look like to run to Jesus in that failure that you just mentioned?
Excellent.
What does it look like to bring your heart and to actually, because we can use these words, run to Jesus, lean into Jesus, press into Jesus, and not know at all what we're really talking about. This is where we need you to define it and maybe a couple action steps to make that happen in your life. So,
and I think it would be good if they discuss the first question first. So pick the current failure in your life or in your relationships, go around the circle there, then think about what would it look like to bring those to Jesus. Right? And frankly, if there's no failures in life anywhere, then maybe it's a good time to fess up to the group, why are you living life so safe? Because any of us live by faith at all, or even try to live, we're going to have failures in our lives.
Totally, So don't think even generally just as sin. We think of failure as sin. We're talking just failure.
Sure.
I mean, it could be a lot more than just where you're failing in sin. But let's discuss this stuff.
And then before you come back as a whole group, pray for each other.
Yes, huge, absolutely. Let's get into that right now, so we'll give you guys a little bit extra time to do that. All right, welcome back, guys. We hope that was really a really neat thing. That's different than what we normally do in groups to be able to, we do a lot of talking, but this one was very specific, so I hope that was a benefit to you. One thing that we want to talk, and I want to ask you, Ken, about this, okay? Because you talked about who we brought up the mountain with and what happened on the top of the mountain, but we don't get to the issue of, why? Why did we even go, what point, did this have in the whole grand scheme of things for him to go up, except for us to be like, oh, the transfiguration, what does it mean?
And that's kind of funny, too, because this is the transfiguration. This might have happened with Jesus all the time. We don't know. This is the only time he took anyone up. So, we don't know that. It's a good thing they took him up. But, that's a good question. Why did he actually take him up, to meet Moses and Elijah? Did he know that Moses and Elijah would be there? Here's my read on it. I actually think that Jesus went up the mountain totally. The reason why he went up is because he was afraid.
But Jesus was.
Jesus was afraid. The Transfiguration, this story is actually told in the book of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And in Luke chapter 9, verse 31, we're told that Moses and Elijah actually talked with Jesus about the departure from life, which was to take place in Jerusalem. And why would that be necessary? Because Jesus knew that. He was part of the plan. Jesus initiated the plan. Right after Adam and Eve sinned, the plan came in motion. Jesus knew that. Why was this necessary? Because he was afraid.
Right. So this was an encouragement to
you. What's so important here is Jesus understands fear. He understands our weakness. He understands, we're so used to God as Jesus as being 100% God, which he was. But sometimes we forget that he was 100% human. He understands our weaknesses. He understands our temptations. He understands what it's like to feel rejected. He understands what it is like to be betrayed. He knows what it's like to have people gossip about you, to lie behind your back, to be falsely accused. He knows what it's like to be beat up. He knows what it's like to be sexually abused. He was hung naked before the world when he was executed. He knows what it's like to be alone. He understands sickness and disease. The Bible tells us that he actually, on his human body, he took all, his human and divine body, he took all of our sins, he took all of our pain, our disease, sickness on him. He understands all that. And the question for what I find encouragement is, what difference does that make in my life today to know that Jesus fully understands everything about me? And so what I'd like people to do is, there's two passages of scripture, Hebrews chapter 2 verse 10 to 18, and Hebrews chapter 4 verse 14 to 16. If the small groups community groups would read that out loud, and then talk about a couple of questions that we're going to post on the screen here. What does it mean?
Man, and that's just so powerful. What a reminder, just to look through what Jesus had actually experienced and how that relates to us now. That's going to be a huge point. And let this kind of settle into your heart about getting to know Jesus at a different level, because you're right, we often explore the divinity of what Christ did, the miracles of what Christ did, the resurrection of what Christ did, the accomplishment that he made on the cross. But to know his humanity, to know that aspect of him is huge in understanding who Jesus is and relating him to your life. So let's discuss that as groups. Let's read those two texts from Hebrews and then discuss that right now.
Great.